All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go out to our first game of the week. We're talking Mountain West football this time. It's San Diego State. They're 2-3 on the year, but they are traveling to the Air Force Falcons. They're 4-0 on the season, 2-0 in the Mountain West Conference. At time of record, it is a 10.5-point favorite for Air Force right now. Over-under is set at 42.5 points. San Diego State's on a 3-game losing streak after starting the season 2-0, but their 3-game losing streak fresh. This is impressive. UCLA, Oregon State, Boise State. All three of those teams, respectable football programs. No shame in losing to those teams, especially if you're in the Mountain West. I think a lot of people will say, well, why are you previewing a 2-3 San Diego State team? This team is much better on paper than what the record shows right now. But you are what your record says you are.
That's very true. And the funny part is, the reason why I said is that week 6 and week 5 of the very opening is because this is actually San Diego State's 6th game of the season. It's September 30th. Their schedule is basically half done before October even starts, which is, it's painful as a football fan because you're like, well, what do I do for the next 2 months? I only have 6 games the next 8-9 weeks. But they've put in the work. They've had to play a lot of tough opponents. And now with conference play in the Mountain West starting out, hopefully maybe some of that experience of playing the Oregon States, the UCLAs, Ohio, the opener, pays off down the stretch. If they are going to be successful, their offense is definitely going to improve. The Aztecs historically have been a run-first, run-heavy football team and playing great defense, especially under Brady Hoke. We haven't seen either of those things so far this season. Now, probably it's because they played some very tough opponents in their schedule, but they just haven't played themselves. They have not played their brand of football up to this point. And it starts with the quarterback, Jalen Maiden, 942 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, but he's also the leading rusher with 278 and 3 touchdowns. This is not a triple option offense. This is not a spread offense. It's more of a pro-style run-centric, but they haven't got anything going any outside of him, and that's got to change coming into this football game if you want to beat a very good Air Force team on the road. I want to know in this football game who is going to step up on that offense. Is it going to be tight end Mark Redmond, wide receiver Balin Brooks, wide receiver Brioni Penny, wide receiver Mekhi Shaw, or where's Jalen Armstead at? Who is going to become that number 2, that number 3 guy in this rotation to put up points, put up yards, and keep the offense going? You cannot continue to keep relying on your quarterback as a one-man show, because if he has an off day or the offensive line struggling, the offense is going to sink. They've got to find that this week. Maybe the pressure's a little off. They have nothing to lose going into play Air Force. They're 2-3. They've had a rough start. Maybe nobody on the outside expects them to show up. You've got to sort of use this as a way to galvanize and bring your team together. And for lack of a better term, hunker down and figure it out. Who's going to be the spark? Who's going to bring that offense and take advantage of this situation? You could go into Colorado Springs, go into basically the base of Pikes Peak, into Air Force Stadium, into Falcon Stadium, and take out an undefeated program that is high and rising, and I think is a very, very good team and on the cusp of top 25, in my opinion. If you can go in there and do this, it makes up and it takes away that loss to UCLA. It takes away the loss to Oregon State. It takes away that clunker to Boise State in the opener. It makes you one-on-one in the league. It puts you back on basically level playing ground and move forward, and you knocked off arguably the best team in the conference. So it gives you really a chance to maybe even play up. There's no divisions anymore, so anything can happen if you work yourself through the league. This is a big time for Brady Hoke and that team to sort of bring themselves together. If you put all your effort in this one, your schedule lightens up down the stretch. Can they get this done? Also on the defensive end, when you're playing a triple option centric attack like Air Force brings, what are your keys on defense? Your linebackers. Do not get looking at all the window dressing behind you. Follow the running backs, follow the quarterback, tackle, helmet on pads, wrap up and drive him into the ground. You can't get too carried away with some of the, fake some of the motions. Got to play your gap and play disciplined football. That's how triple option teams beat people. Everyone laughed at Paul Johnson, who's at Georgia Tech. Oh, it's running this, high school offense. Georgia Tech went to an Orange Bowl. They won the ACC running that same offense. It's discipline, it's manipulation, it's running at you from multiple angles and causing you to get lazy on your tackling assignments and lazy on your discipline, and that's when they break one for 50, 60 yards and a score. You've got to be focused, you've got to be locked in to stop the triple option, and that's what the Aztec defense is going to have to go through. It's very, very tough to prepare for, and you haven't really played an offense that's like it all year. So how does this team, in a week span, lock themselves down and get themselves ready to go? On the other side, Air Force's offense is ridiculous, averaging 340 on the ground a game. Quarterback Zach Lear from Youngstown, Ohio, big time college football, big time Ohio centric football team here in Air Force. But as we all know, Ohio is basically bred football, and especially Youngstown. 221 in the air, 259 on the ground for him and 3 touchdowns. He is definitely the leader. He's going to be the general, if you will, to get this offense going. But running back Emmanuel Mitchell from Lawrenceville, Georgia, 322 on the ground and 6 touchdowns. And you also got running backs John Lee Eldridge, also from Youngstown, and Owen Burke, 3rd and 4th overall rushers of the team. The 4 of these guys all having 250 plus yards rushing to their name so far this season. All 4 of them are lethals. They all can take it the distance if they have a chance. You've got to make sure you're disciplined to be able to tackle them because they've been doing it. And the funny thing is, all those guys are seniors. This is not a freshman coming in there. They're all seniors. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this before. If you include coronavirus, you have 2020, possibly even 5 or 6 years. They are well groomed in understanding their offense and their discipline spots and where they're supposed to be. That makes it even tougher on the defense because the mistakes from their end are going to be very, very limited. Their defense is just as good, and it's led by Alec Mock, the starting linebacker, 31 total tackles with 2 sacks, and safety Trey Taylor, 25 tackles and a half a sack and a pick. The 2 of them, also seniors, getting after it and really locking it down. This team is very, very veteran laden. You've got to make sure that they beat themselves if you're the Aztecs, because Air Force is not going to give it away. You're going to have to be physical, and you're going to have to hope for them to slip up in a mistake here or there, which I find very, very difficult. This is a very good football team at home. If it was in the road down at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, I'd be a little more on the Aztec side, but I think Air Force rolls in this game. They're favored by 10.5. They will cover it. The over-under is a little tough because it requires Aztecs to score. I think it'd take the under in this situation, but the Air Force Academy, the Falcons, will cover and win.
Fresh, San Diego State last week against Boise State allowed 241 rushing yards to Boise State. Air Force right now has attempted 12 passing attempts on the entire season. There's a lot of teams that are attempting 12 passing attempts in a quarter right now. If San Diego State doesn't do it, we can talk all day long about Jalen Maiden, and you're right. He can't be the do-all everything quarterback. He can't be responsible for throwing the ball. He can't be responsible for being their lead rusher. Can't do everything and put the entire offensive game plan onto his shoulders. Someone else needs to make play on the offensive side. But the defense has got to pull themselves up a little bit as well. Brady Hoke, for the longest time, was well known for being a defensive-sided coach. He needs to kind of bring that run defense back together for the Aztecs. Granted, yes, you're not playing the UCLAs, you're not playing the Oregon States. This is going to be an interesting one. See if they're able to bring that defense back, kind of limit the rushing attack. Because like you said, you don't really go up against the triple option very often. And it's very difficult to game plan against. It's very difficult to kind of simulate in practice because it's not something that you're used to doing. That's what makes it so effective. For Air Force, the rushing attempt is going to be relentless for them. So, as you said, the top 4 rushers for Air Force, and again, that's what I looked at because of San Diego State's ineptitude on defense, especially against the run. I started looking at solely what is Air Force going to do when they're running the football. Their top 4 rushers are all seniors. They account for 14 of their 17 touchdowns on the year. You also forgot, though, the Air Force defense linebacker P.J. Ramsey. He's had a really good year as well. He's got 3 sacks on season. Oh, and guess what? He is as well. He's a senior too. Air Force is a very senior-laden team. Like you said, they're not going to beat themselves in this football game. Right now on the season, they have 14 total penalties. That's less. It's just over 3 penalties a game. That means that they're a disciplined football team. It's what we expect from the military academies. We see this every single time when we talk about Army and Navy. We see this when we're talking about Air Force. I'm sure when Space Force gets a football team, they'll be a disciplined football team as well. They all have that same MO. They're going to play. They're going to control the clock. Air Force right now on the season is averaging over 36 minutes of possession in a football game. That's huge. If San Diego State wants to win this football game, they cannot allow Air Force to get rolling downfield. The minute they sit there, they're going to need to stop drives within, I'm telling you, you can't have these 12, 13, 14 play drive, so it ends in a touchdown for Air Force. San Diego State, 5 or 6 plays, because Air Force is probably not going to hit you with a lot of big play touchdowns there. You got to really pull that one together. I have Air Force winning this outright, but I think San Diego State is going to show that they're a little bit better than where they were. They're playing. Wound up going back and I'm watching the first half of the UCLA San Diego State game. They played UCLA very, very tough early on in that football game. And then you started to see the talent difference start to come out late in the second quarter there in that game. I'm going to say this. I think San Diego State's going to have that in them, but the triple option is too difficult for teams. Give me Air Force outright, but I'll take San Diego State in the 10.5. If that number slips below double digits, I'm going to go back with Air Force because I think 9 points is right around the sweet spot for me. But I'll take San Diego State in the 10.5. Over under, I'm with you. That's a tough one for me. I'll go under right now just because I think this is going to be a tight ball game. And again, if Air Force gets these long, drawn-out drives, there's not going to be enough point scores for that to come into the over.
Yep. And folks, just put in perspective, Air Force has 14 penalties all season. Boston College had 18 versus Florida State in that single game alone.
Right.